Farm workers can be a source of contamination to fresh produce due to their ability to carry, introduce, and spread human pathogens. This is especially true if farm workers don't follow proper health and hygiene practices. A well-trained workforce is essential to reduce risks and meet food safety regulations. Part 112.21a of the Food Safety Modernization Act states that all farm workers who handle covered produce or food contact surfaces must receive adequate training at least once annually. This training program must cover 3 general topics: the principles of food hygiene and food safety, the importance of health and personal hygiene, including recognizing symptoms of a health condition that could result in direct or indirect contamination of produce, and other standards in FSMA that are relevant to the farm worker's job. Farm workers need to know how to maintain adequate personal cleanliness and when and how to properly wash their hands. You'll also want to orient workers to the bathrooms, hand washing stations, and break areas. 112.129 of FSMA requires that adequate, readily accessible toilet facilities must be provided, and hand washing stations should be in close proximity to these facilities. Additionally, the training should outline the farm policy for blood and bodily fluids, injuries, and illness. Here, you'll want to point out where the first aid kit is, as well as who to report to if a worker were to get injured. As mentioned before, workers should be able to identify symptoms that can be hazards to food safety. These symptoms include diarrhea, fever, sore throat with fever, vomiting, jaundice, and pus-filled open lesions. In cases where farm workers are exhibiting these symptoms, they must alert their supervisors and refrain from handling produce. Other topics to discuss during the training are policies on eating, drinking, and smoking, as well as policies on clothing and jewelry. 112.32 of FSMA states that eating, chewing gum, and using tobacco products is prohibited in an area used for covered activity. This part also requires that gloves are maintained in an intact and sanitary condition, and hand jewelry is removed or covered if it cannot be adequately cleaned and sanitized before handling produce. If a farm worker is responsible for harvest activities of produce covered under the Produce Safety Rule, they have additional training requirements. For one, they should be able to recognize produce that must not be harvested. They also must be able to inspect harvest containers to ensure proper functioning, and either correct any issues with harvest containers or report them to the supervisor. At the end of the training, the date, topics covered, and people trained must be recorded. Along with that, every farm worker needs to sign a form saying that they've read and fully understand the policies. Conducting a farm worker training that is easily understood and remembered by everyone can be challenging. Using visuals or demonstrations in addition to written materials can be effective to accommodate all learning styles. Taking the time to train workers is an investment, but it's critical in order to reduce food safety risks and comply with the food safety laws.